Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. Today, we'll be talking something very important, and I hope you stay back and digest this very well because I personally do not know this. And I am saying a very big shout out to Lava the Bazman for bringing so many great education, especially for me, because this is more like a learning process for me in particular. So he's because of Juneteenth, and he talked about indentured servitude, how some Black people were indentured servitude, people that were taken off, the first people that were taken off from Africa down to right, and then he talked about how some of them their punishment for being darker skinned or Black is everlasting slavery. And now this also tells you why colorism it's really has embedded in so many people that it is so easy for them to know that you are not palm colored and you are Black and all that. And now I see one of the reasons why a lot of people also want to associate with that whiteness, because that is the if you are not, you do not belong, and the rest of it. And he also went further to explain how during the slavery, there was a law that was enacted when the slavery was almost over. And what the law that was enacted was also used to bring back people back to plantation. Why? Let's just get straight up into this.
Hey, good morning. Happy holidays. It's Juneteenth. Did you know that the first people who were stolen from Africa and trafficked to British colonial America were indentured servants? True story. They were given a set period of time to work off their debt, and after that debt was completed, they would be given land. This all started on August 20th, 1619, when 20 Angolans first arrived at Port Comfort. Two of those Africans were Antonio and Isabella, who got their names from the Portuguese who had been enslaving and trafficking Africans since the 1440s. Now, they were known as servants of Captain William Turner, not property, but servants. And in 1623, they gave birth to their son named William Turner, the first African born in British colonial America. And get this, he was born a free man. And that's the way things worked in British colonial America until around 1627 or 28, when the British were like, if all of these Africans are going to get their freedoms, then we're not going to have anyone here to work our fields, and we're not going to make any money in the process. So they forced Africans to work past the end of their contracts. Their punishment for having the audacity to complete their servitude was a lifetime of enslavement. And that's how things were in British colonies. Your punishment for being Black or dark-skinned was enslavement, be it in the Americas, South Africa, Australia, or beyond. Wherever you were, if you were a dark-skinned person, your punishment was enslavement. Now, a lifetime of enslavement became legal in the 1640s with the conviction of John Punch. John Punch was an Angolan who was captured and trafficked to the Americas and was bought by Hugh Gwynn. Hugh Gwynn also had white indentured servants, and in 1640, John Punch and a couple of his white indentured servants ran away from Hugh Gwynn's enslavement. They were later captured and brought back. The white indentured servants had 4 years tacked on to the end of their sentence, while John Punch, the African, was given a lifetime of enslavement as his punishment. Now, that was the first time in British colonial America that anyone had been sentenced to a lifetime of enslavement. That case also set up a distinction between Africans and Europeans. Fast forward 10 years and we meet a man named John Castor, an African who's enslaved by another African named Anthony Johnson. Now, John Castor realized that his period of servitude was over a couple years ago, so he sued for his freedom and lost. And he became the second person sentenced to a lifetime of enslavement, even though he did nothing wrong. And that case proved that enslavement was a punishment for Africans who had the audacity to complete their period of servitude. In the 16 and 1700s, white people created the concept of race and invented racism as justification for their mistreatment of non-white peoples the world over. Now, this gave white people a superiority complex, and in the 17, 18, and 1900s, they invented scientific racism to prove whites' superiority disorder. And this disorder caused a war between the United States of America and the Confederate States of America. You see, the Confederate States of America wanted to maintain slavery as their way of life. They built their whole way of living around slavery, and they wanted to fight for the right to enslave black people for eternity. While the North was like, nah, you can't do that. Even though we benefit from your particular brand of enslavement, we don't think it's right for you to enslave people for life. And they went to war behind it, and the Confederacy lost. So in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, effectively ending chattel slavery within the United States. But when the people of Texas got the memo, they didn't care about the abolishment of slavery. They kept the practice going for a full 2 years. So on June 19, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger marched into Galveston, Texas, and declared that all enslaved people are free, which put an end to slavery as punishment for simply being black. You see, the 13th Amendment ended slavery as a way of life in America, but it kept enslavement as a punishment for anyone who's been duly convicted of a crime. And what were the crimes of the day? Well, vagrancy and loitering. What's a vagrant? A vagrant is a person who has neither home, nor job, nor means to support themselves. And who were the vagrants of the day? Newly freed Africans who had neither plantation to work on or live on. So what's loitering? Loitering is standing around a business idly without purpose. And who were the loiterers of the day? Newly freed Africans who were standing around businesses looking for work. And overnight, the prison population went from 95% white to 95% black. And it did that in part because you couldn't arrest someone's property. After we were no longer considered property, our crimes were being free and looking for work. And we were arrested en masse. And after we were arrested and convicted, we were then leased back to the plantations from which we were just freed. And that's how Juneteenth, the prison industrial complex, and convict leasing became today's moment in white history.
So I'm continuing to argue with strangers on the internet, which I know is not smart. Like, I know, but I can't help it. But hey, white people, just make me feel a little bit better. Enslaved people, built our cities, north and south. Back before New York City was New York City, people came in, and do we think that workers were paid to build the infrastructure, the bridges, the buildings, or do we think we paid them, or do we think we used free labor? 20% of New York City was enslaved people at one point. So did we use the free labor to build these things, or did we pay people? What do we think? See, and my snark is starting to come out, and I promised I would try to do this work without getting snarky, but our country was literally built by enslaved people. And I know that's one of the facts that as white people, we try to not look straight at, because then it makes us feel like responsible to do something about the fact that black people are still not getting what they deserve in our country. But you have to look at that. You have to, because it's the truth, and it's the reality of our country. So highways, railroads, big skyscrapers. These things were built by enslaved people. Maybe not big skyscrapers. I don't know when the first skyscraper was built. But of course there were enslaved people in the North. Yes, the North woke up and realized, perhaps we shouldn't own other human beings. They woke up to that first. But that doesn't mean that on the onset that's how it was. There were so many enslaved people bought and sold through New York City port. Come on.
So this is all I got from this. And sincerely speaking, I don't want to imagine how life was back then during slavery. It's something like sometimes you sit down and you think, with all this that I am learning and all that, I just do not want to imagine because these people, if you, okay, now let's look at this. There was something that he said. And before, sorry, I forgot to say a very big shout out to Mr. Love, the Bassman, for all the educations that he brings and all that. I really do appreciate him. He's a great man, and my condolences to his family and to him, especially over he lost his mother, and I hope you are strong. So let's continue. The now coming from a slave during slavery, right? And how people were freed, and at the same time, why going out to look for? I think I also learned this from him too. Why also going out to look for a job, right? They also enacted another law stopping you from even going out to look for something. That is vagrant's law, and then loitering. So, how do you expect somebody that does not have a job to get a job? If you do not want loitering, if you do not want vagrant's law, people needed to get accommodation because they were freed from plantation. People also needed to get a job to keep them moving and all of that. And if you have noticed, it looks like some certain things that happened during slavery became a pattern to Black people because most of the things they did back then to this very moment is still happening. Like the way they started arresting people over vagrant's law and all that, putting them in prison, and the prison all of a sudden from how many percent to how many percent people that look like me. It is still happening to this very moment. Go to the prison. So most of all the things happening are not just by mistake. It is something that has been programmed. And it's just like the way police and all that. How did police brutality started? If you go back and trace it, you can also find it through history. How it started, how when people left the plantation and they started chasing people down and all that was how police police actually started, and then the brutality and the rest of it. So looking at all this, and then hearing that slavery was beneficial to slaves, it's giving me migraine. It is. And for the woman that said that African Americans or Black people built North and South and all that, but she's not sure if they railway and all that, but she's not sure of the skyscrapers, then who built them? Who built them? You should also be sure of that. Because it looks like every day we wake up, we are going back and forth with these people. And also with everything that has happened to people that look like me to this very moment, it is amazing how they are very, very sad that Juneteenth is national holiday, because they are asking, why would that be a national holiday? Forgetting that they also have their own holiday. When Black people go on when it is African American Black History, it is, why do they have History Month? Why do we not have when every day is all for you? So most of the people that were captured back then were indentured servitude, right? Man, see, really, I don't think we can learn, but I think that the good thing is that we keep learning every day. But I cannot, especially me. I know some of you know all this, but I cannot learn a lot and enough. As the day goes by, you keep learning more. That is one of the reasons why sometimes when I get angry over some certain things, and I tell myself, yes, my angers or my anything that are it's it is allowed, it is okay. Because some of them, they have refused to learn about African American history. That's why sometimes when you come online, especially on TikTok, you are hearing things like, why is it that they never taught all this in school? Why is it that I learn more about African and Black history on TikTok from Black content creators because they do not want people to know it. And they are fighting so hard because if not, why are they burning books? Why all of a sudden your history became very violent that they cannot teach it? They do not want your kids to learn it because you are not supposed to learn it because it is deceiving, because that was not how it happened. You all already know that if there is something that I am very sure of, that it's well documented, it's African American history. It is absolutely well documented that if you type some certain things online, you are also going to see and read it. So there is no how you are going to fight because you do not want other generations or your own generations to know the truth. That's why each time Black people talk about reparation, they ask you, why do you need reparations? Because they feel like they do not see a reason why they should fix what they did. Now, when I talk, especially when I personally talk about reparations, I am even not talking about slavery. I am talking about all the damages that has been done to people like me for the reparations to be paid. You know what? See you all in my next video. Bye for now.